the Village of Lake Barrington Board of Trustees regular meeting on Tuesday, January the 8th. Would the clerk please call the roll?
President Richardson, Trustee Burke,
Here.
Trustee Mitchell,
Here.
Trustee Perkins,
Here.
Trustee Rigby,
Here.
Trustee Schaller,
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here. Thank you. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 4 on the agenda is approval of our previous meetings of both the Committee of the Whole and minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting, both held on December 4th, 2018. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or corrections for the clerk at this time? If not, Chair is looking for a motion to approve the minutes in block, both items 4A and 4B above. So moved. Moved by Trustee Schaller and seconded by, Trustee Mitchell. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Schaller,
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell,
Yes.
Trustee Burke.
Abstain, I was not here.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Trustee Perkins,
Yes.
Trustee Rigby, Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
Great. Minutes are approved. Thank you. Item number 5 is President remarks. President Richardson could not be here. He's out of the country on business. I've been asked to sit in, which I'm happy to do. Just quickly, want to say to all of our board and our staff and our residents at home, very happy New Year. We hope 2018 was a great year for you. 2019 is going to be an even greater year. We are certainly up here looking forward to a tremendous 2019. We're excited about what the future brings us. And with that, the other item that we have on the President's remarks is the BACOG legislative platform. And I see that Janet Aguiletti is here, who's the Executive Director of BACOG. Janet, welcome. Always good to see you here.
Thank you very much. It's always good to be here.
Good. What's going on with the legislative platform at BACOG?
Well, we have a recommended one. That's the good news.
Great.
So the recommended platform that you got in your packet was developed by our BACOG Legislative Committee. And first I want to make the shout out to Chris Mitchell, who is your member, your representative on that legislative committee. Thanks, Chris, for showing up every time. So we developed this platform and use it once a year. We have a new platform for the next legislative session, and we use it with our legislators to work with them on issues that are important to us on behalf of all our BACOG governments. We also use it in the BACOG office to select and track bills that fall under the platform concepts, and then to take action on those. So we call a legislator, write an email, write a letter, contact them and let them know what BACOG's position is. I'd like to point out, as I have done for the last, I want to say about 6 or 7 years, that the platform is largely the same as last year's platform, except that it has some new items in there. But the reason is the issues are still the same. We have a state that has an uncontrolled financial situation, out of control, huge obligation and debt, and now, as of this last election, we have single-party control of the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. So I don't know that spending will be more in control. I don't know that it will be less in control, but we'll just have to see what happens. So our priorities as a whole at BACOG are much the same as yours, and thank you for weighing in with some opinion on what you think the top priorities should be. I know you did that. I got those from Karen. So they are essentially the same as, well, maybe you had some input from Chris on that, but they are essentially the same as are contained in the platform. The first is the protection of local government revenues. So the state has a financial situation on its hands, and over the last, I want to say probably 8 or 9 years, the legislature has attempted and succeeded in many cases in taking away funds that are due to local governments, including LGTF, the corporate property replacement tax. MFT is kind of on the the table now for discussion, and when they cut those funds, when they keep them from us, you know the result, which is you have less money to work with to provide services, and residents end up paying more for those services, or you cut services. So those are conditions across the state. They have placed additional fees, the state has placed additional fees, like the administrative fee of 2%, which is now 1.5%, on your locally imposed sales taxes. So they're taking a fee that the studies say at most costs the state maybe 0.5 percentage point to administer, but it started at 2%, it's now at 1.5%, and we are going to be making the point all spring session that we'd like to see that reduced or preferably eliminated. That's a fee that they don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily connect to a local tax. Pension reform is probably in the top 3. It is in the top 3. So what our platform says is we'd like to see consolidation of the more than 650 public safety pension funds into 1, 2, or 3 funds. So all those police and fire pension funds, which are separately held now and developed and administered and so on, could all roll into Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, which is well-run and well-funded, or they could go into a single statewide police fund and a statewide fire fund, or there could be one statewide police and fire pension fund. This will be very difficult to accomplish because of the pushback from the police and fire primarily. But that's the goal. That's where they could increase the investment pool and therefore increase the funds they have available for pension and benefits, and that would reduce administrative overhead. So in lieu of a constitutional amendment, which I can't imagine happening anytime soon, at least, this is a way to help save money and for the state in these pension funds. So local control is probably the third. These are not necessarily in order, but certainly the third priority of BACOG communities. So there have been a lot of bills out there that have proposed preempting home rule authority in whatever the subject matter. Many of those succeeded, so the state is kind of whittling away at the powers of home rule communities. We instead would like to see every community in the Illinois be home rule and have greater local decision-making power. But local control includes things like labor and contract costs, proposed expansions of prevailing wage, for instance, on publicly or partially publicly funded projects. We've seen that occur. We'd like to see fewer projects subject to prevailing wage because, as you know, the higher wages also decrease the local money available for other programs and services. I think with this administration, we may see instead an expansion of prevailing wage, less control over benefits for public safety personnel, maybe another responsible bidder bill, which would benefit the big union companies. And my comment on that is that a lot of big lobby money went into the last election, and more Democrats took power took their seats in that election. That doesn't come without a cost to us and what we see in bills before the legislature. And some of those bills will pass. Now, I would say the same thing. If the Republicans had swept the seats and gained seats and so on, then those elections wouldn't come without a cost in terms of the bills that we see. But that's where we are right now. Majority, House, Senate, Governor's office. Land use should be a local decision, but the state has increasingly taken some of the control over land use away. If you remember affordable housing a number of years ago, but there are other bills that address land use and local decision making. Especially, we would like to see, and we include this in the platform, we'd like to see more control over controversial or intensive development on properties that are adjacent to communities with residential neighborhoods. So often it's unincorporated property, and we have seen in this past year uses like intensive agricultural use, if you think of the chicken farm situation, for example. But we've also had it with location of utilities, the small cell bill, which ultimately passed and took our local authorities away. And then there are also other items that are like control over short-term rentals, which was proposed last session to take our local control away from regulating that industry. Not in the top priority, but certainly very important to BayCog, but we're talking legislative, so very important is environmental protection and groundwater. Legislatively, we don't see a lot happening in that area, but I will say this, our area provides a function to other areas by cleaning the air and the water with open space and groundwater recharge and so on. Also, every good steward of groundwater, like our area, is a wonderful steward of groundwater, helps save Lake Michigan water for other communities. So we provide a service to those other communities that use other sources of water. So in the platform, we say, because of that, we would like the state to assist us with a little bit of funding to support some of our groundwater programs, like our monitoring program, where we're monitoring water levels. They have donated resources and they see the value of what we're doing. We would like for them to continue to do that and to understand that we think that is a fair deal. We're also asking for notice to adjacent governments and the public on situations like land use, like agricultural uses that don't fit within zoning, for example, and also more local control over some of these issues. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong paragraph. I said that already. The last thing is, in terms of funding, was we'd like to see the sweeps of open space acquisition funds like OSLAD and conservation programs. We'd like to see the fund sweep that had been going on stop. Those programs are important. They also protect the environment and meet the goals of our program. So that's all I have on the platform. I want to announce 2 programs that we're having, but are there any questions on anything specific in the platform?
Any questions?
What kind of rapport do we have with the newly elected officials that will allow BayCog to continue to hopefully have some influence in Springfield?
Well, so we have 2 new officials within the whole area. We met with Senator Ann Gillespie in December and had a very good meeting with her. She was very open to our environmental goals and those issues in the platform, and we had some common ground in other areas, so she seemed very, very receptive.
Including home rule. She was,
Including home
her
rule.
remark was, wait a minute, why is it every village and town? So, very interesting perspective.
And she's strong on education. And I have reached out to our newly elected state representative, Mary Edley Allen, several times. She's called me. We haven't found a time yet that she would be available, but the idea is that our legislative committee and anyone who is interested would sit down with her and we just kind of go through our issues and what's important to our area. So I'm hopeful that'll happen pretty soon. And the other legislators we do pretty well with. They know who we are, to say the least.
Other questions on the platform?
I was just going to ask the same question Trustee Scheller asked. Thank you.
And we'll be doing a lobby day in the spring sometime. So you can come to Springfield with us. And
You don't have a date for that yet?
No, we don't. It could, was that Trustee Scheller, did you just ask that question?
Yes.
Yes, because we have talked about it in committee, and we may do, I sent out some information, you may have seen, that the Illinois Municipal League Lobby Day is May 1st, so we will probably make that a lobby day, day before, day after, but there maybe we'll schedule another one earlier in session as well.
Thank you.
Other questions on the platform specifically? Okay, you got a couple of.
Yes, 2 things to announce. So one is, I hope you've seen these things already, because we sent out some advance notice, but the one I think you got a flyer for is we're having a workshop called Stormwater, Flooding, and Green Infrastructure, Thinking Outside the Ordinance. So it's going to deal with ordinances, the county ordinance, stormwater, and then maybe come up with some interesting ideas for you all, for your plan commissioners, zoning boards, anyone who's interested, homeowner associations who do this kind of work. It will be Tuesday, January 29th, 6:30 to 8:30 at McGonagall's. I'm pretty sure you probably got a flyer already. Our speakers are Brian Gillespie from Manhart Consulting and Keith Gray from Integrated Lakes Management, and your own Karen Dalton-Lang, who all are going to cover different topics related to green infrastructure in particular. So I hope you'll attend that and get the word out. And it's co-sponsored, I didn't say that, but it's co-sponsored by BACOG, the Flint Creek Spring Creek Watershed Partnership, and the Village of Lake Barrington, because Karen was so involved in helping us plan the workshop. So thank you for the co-sponsorship. And we have two sponsors. The speakers from the private companies are going to be sponsoring the food part of the reception prior to the program start, so we thank them too. The second item is we're having an emergency management tabletop exercise on Friday, February 1st, 8 a.m. till noon at the Barrington Public Safety Building. And Trustee Schaller has been part of the planning for that group, so thank you for sending him and allowing him to participate in this. All I can tell you right now is the exercise will have something to do with water. Otherwise, you'll be surprised when you walk in the room. That's how it's intended. You won't know what the disaster is going to be, but it'll have something to do with water. So I hope you will all consider attending.
I'm sorry, what was the date of that again?
The tabletop exercise is Friday, February 1st, 8 a.m. until noon. And I'll be sending out the official invitation and announcement probably within about a week. We still have a couple things to mail down.
And still at the Barrington Public Safety.
Yeah, that's why it's a pretty good idea to register beforehand, because seating can be somewhat limited, even though it's a nice big room.
That's true. Yeah, probably your village, you all should decide together who's going to attend, so that you have, every community has enough people and not too many people. John will sure be there.
No, you know, so.
That's right. That's right.
So,
We'll
anyway,
miss you.
it's,
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you giving me the time, and I'm running off to the airport to pick up daughter number 2 right now, so I'm going to take my leave, and thank you.
Very good.
Thank
Thank you very much, Shannon.
Thank you for all you do
Yes.
as well, Jan.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Okay, agenda item number 6 is the first opportunity for the public to address the board with non-agenda items. And I don't see anyone wishing to do that. So we
Just take a number and get in line.
Yeah, right. It's now serving. No, they were not. Okay. We can still do a consent. Great. Yes, Karen just pointed out to me that these items on the consent agenda were not part of our committee of the whole meeting. So each one, we will have some setup and discussion on those, but we will still vote on them in block at the end of the 2 items.
like that. Load on.
Vote on them.
We did that committee of the
Let's
whole.
not vote on them. That's all I do. So item A, endorsement of Flint Creek Watershed Plan. Karen, you're going to speak to this?
Yes, in your packet is a endorsement of this Flint Creek Spring Creek Watershed Plan. You probably heard me talking up here the last several months about the watershed plan. It's been updated. It's been approved by the US EPA, which is all really good. We need that watershed plan because that's how we can apply for 319 grants, and I'll be talking about that a little bit more in my administrator's report. And one of the things that the EPA likes is for the participating organizations like the communities to endorse the watershed plan. It doesn't give us any financial responsibility, but it just says, hey, we're aware of it, we support it, it's a good thing to do. And so that's the first resolution is an endorsement. And just as an aside, the BACOG executive committee has already endorsed it. So the mayors from all the towns have endorsed it, but this is also the municipality endorsing it as well. The second item.
Before you move on for a second, let's just stop and see if there are questions on item A. Does anybody have a question for Karen? Item A on the watershed plan? Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. The second item, item 7B, is for an approval for my proposed travel expenses to the Illinois City County Management Association Winter Conference. Our employee manual states that if the rates are higher than the government services, or General Services Administration, GSA rates, then approval is needed by the village board for that. So in this case, where they're hosting the conference, the hotel room is $141 a night, and the GSA allows for $94 a night. So, okay, so that will be in February.
Is this something that we've always participated in? Or
Yeah, I attended last year, and it's in that.
it's in your contract?
So it's,
Apparently there'll be no further questions.
but it's actually, it's a
Slow burn.
It reflects the importance of the event in terms of idea sharing.
Yes, it
And
is.
her profession.
We'll just move on.
Yeah, it's a very
Thank you,
good
Attorney
conference.
Mason,
Thank
for
you.
putting that in the legal. Are there any questions on item G?
My only question is this amount good? It's covered all your meals, et cetera, everything?
Yes, the proposed conference travel cost of $783, that's travel, hotel, and any additional meals. Most of the meals are provided at the conference.
All right, if there are no further questions, then Chair would like a motion to approve in block. Item A, motion to approve resolution number 2019-R-1, resolution endorsing the FCSCWP watershed plan. Not easy to say.
In compliance with the US EPA.
Right. Along with item B, which is the motion to approve the travel expenses for Karen to attend the winter conference for the ILCMA. Do I have such a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by trustee Rigby and seconded by trustee Thompson. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Rigby.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
Trustee Burke.
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell.
Yes.
Trustee Perkins.
Yes.
Trustee Scheller.
Yes.
Thank you. Item E, the treasurer's report. Debbie Vernon, our village accountant, is here to help us out with that tonight. Welcome, Debbie. Nice to see you as always.
Debbie volunteered.
She volunteered. So
There's so many people to watch.
proud of big audience, so.
Public demands here.
For the record, I am Debbie Vernon, accountant for the Village of Lake Barrington. Good evening to the village trustees. I'll be presenting the treasurer's report tonight that Peggy has prepared, as she's out of town and not able to be here tonight. The financial statements have been prepared and reviewed for the 7 months that ended November 30th, 2018 of the Village of Lake Barrington's fiscal year 2019. This is the 7th month of our fiscal year, and we're at 58% of our fiscal year completed. If you go to the online or your packets, we're going to start with the general fund of the financial statements. If you look at page 2, which is the flash report, it shows that assets are $2,526,000 and the corresponding liabilities are at $707,000, plus equity of $1,819,000 to equal the $2,526,000. That shows that the balance sheet is appropriately in balance. Revenues for the 7 months is $1,826,000 and expenses are at $1,474,000. That results in a net income of $352,000 compared to a net income of $190,000 for the previous 7 months of last year. The flash report itemizes the one-time planned extraordinary items, which expenses have been covered by our reserved fund balance. The section above the bolded line that shows the total financial numbers. And the section below the line break, it breaks out the regular operations and then one-time items. Once again, the flash report below the bolded line shows that in regular operations, our regular everyday operations for the 7 months of the year are $288,000 of net income compared to last year, net income from regular operations of $199,000. Sales tax, income tax, and utility taxes are higher than last year at this point. Building permit revenues and interest income are also higher. For the balance sheet, all the cash accounts are all in order, and all bank statements have been reconciled monthly and reviewed. If you want to flip forward to pages 11 and 12, that'll give us some more detail about the general fund, the budget. That would be our actual to budget comparisons. It shows that for the first 7 months of our fiscal year, ending April 30th, that's what we're comparing. It shows that the revenues are at 61% actual to budget. Real estate tax revenues and business license, those are collected in the beginning of the fiscal year. Those are helping to bring our budget percentages up. If you turn one more page to page 12, at the bottom there, it will show that expenses are 50% actual to budget for the fiscal year so far. Once the old Barrington Road paving project is finished billing in its entirety, that percentages will jump up a little bit. We've had one pay request already on that.
How far are we through that?
I think it's done, but it just takes a while for the paperwork, isn't that correct?
Yeah, we just got, I think, the last invoice.
Yeah. On page 13, which talks about our motor fuel tax. On page 13, the motor fuel tax fund has cash available of $205,000 in current assets. We normally get from IDOT or from the state of Illinois for MFT funds about $11,000 a month. This will cover the retainage remaining on the Savannah paving, which is $10,000. The final payment for Savannah West road work is actually on tonight's board warrant number B, which is $10,000. That'll complete the project, and that's on a pay request to Geske on warrant B. So the project for Savannah West is now paid in full. The expense, though, will show up on the next board meeting because we're reviewing November statements, so you'll see it next month on the December statements. No other expenses for MFT are anticipated this fiscal year. If you go to page 17, which is the water sewer fund, it will show that there's net assets of $1,388,000. That will be used for future capital expenditures as needed. We must keep the adequate cash on reserve as the water plant again is increasing in age and infrastructure capital amounts are material in dollars. Our capital plan has approximately $140,000 in planned capital expenditures remaining in fiscal 19. You go to page 21, that will be our open space fund. It shows for the November statements that there's $184,000. This was subsequently spent when we had the Featherling property purchase that closed on December 17th. So when you see the December financial statements next month, it will show no cash available in the open space fund.
That would just zero out.
Yes, because we spent it on the Featherling project.
And is that if I can go back to tie that back to page 11, talks about the developer impact fees. That's the 400,000.
Some of the developer impact fees for open space
Open
were
space.
used to, but the numbers aren't exactly all chewed up, because those will be reported December 17th. But we did use the impact fees that we had in open space, along with our open space funds to pay for the whole project. Does that make sense? I think I said it correctly.
So right now, we have no
No.
impact fees, will not.
For open space, we don't have any. Because we
We still
spent
have-
that.
Yeah, but we still have some,
Some school and then a few other
So we
ones.
still, so
yeah, but the open spaces.
part of it is.
Yeah.
That I was just trying to figure out the developer impact fees, which zeroes out. Budgeted 400,000.
Yeah, and that, there's some accounting entries, the auditors made us show us an in and an out, where we had to put a revenue source of using the impact fees and an expense source of when we bought the project. And since it's not all completed,
And the timing is.
the timing, you're not seeing the ins and outs. So next month it'll look better because the actual sale happened in December. So I think that makes sense. It'll make a little bit more
Thank you.
sense next time.
And this is a month month behind as far as reality.
Correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
There's one more thing. And then when you look at the cash, just so you're aware, on page 21, the cash that is the bonds, it's that second cash item of 106, that's only to pay the interest and the principal on the bonds. So that's always kept separate. And now we're down to the warrants, which is the accounts payable. Accounts payable warrants have been reviewed, are in order for your approval. There's just a few little unusual requests that I just kind of wanted to add, and maybe Trustee Rigby, if there's anything that he needs to add about. We had a new health insurance type program that you guys voted on at the December meeting. So if you look at warrant A, you're going to see something from Avida Bank, A-V-I-D-A, it's towards the top. This is the Village of Lake Barrington employer contributed HSA, which is a health savings account. This was for the 2 employees that had PPO insurance, so that's what that is listed. That's a Lake Barrington expense. So it's a little bit different from what you've seen. We haven't had that in prior years. And then if you go a little bit further, there's a couple charges for DAC. DAC, it's Document Administration Company. They're kind of the admin type arm of our health insurance provider broker. And so that is for funding for FSA, which is a flexible savings account. It's pre-funding for 2 employees that are on the HMO insurance. And so we have to kind of front that expense to the admin company, but that money at the end of the year will net out to 0 because I'm taking it out of payroll deductions. Yeah, just so you're clear. And then there's a few other DAC charges, and those are for administration, annual fees that we've always paid in the past, very similar to the previous. So that's for their company taking care of all the admin part of our health insurance and all the programs. Then the very last thing on warrant B in the motor fuel tax fund is a $10,000 payment to Geske, which completes the road work on the Savannah West project. Everything on there has been budgeted and received prior board approval for any large expenses. Now that's kind of a lot of information, but if there's any questions or anything you want me to look up for later, I'd be glad to do that.
In the water sewer fund, does this finish out all the work, the iron filters, the painting?
I I don't know that we've gotten all the bills yet for the iron filter removal
Not yet.
tank. There's
So we're,
still some
that's
coming
still,
in.
we're still tail, but it's
Completed
budgeted.
it's working, it's up and running.
Yes.
Which was more important.
Yes. Everything's working, but like the Dixon Engineering bills haven't all come in yet and some of that. But the painting of the water tower, I believe all those bills have been processed.
We paid all that, yes.
So it's budgeted, it's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the sales tax revenue was significantly higher. Is there anything to that?
Well, from last year?
Yes, that
Well,
stood out?
Because
The
we didn't
Speedway?
have Speedway.
That's what
Speedway
I'm saying.
started December 2017,
Right.
so we had all of May through November 2017 without that.
Right, that's what I thought as well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
About what does that amount to a month right now? A lot.
We can get back to them.
Okay. all right.
Yeah, I can look it up and get back to you. Is there anything else?
Any other questions for Debbie?
Thanks, Dave.
Great job as always. Thanks for your help,
Thank
Debbie.
you.
Okay, Chair would like a motion to approve in block items A through C. A, approve financial statements as of November 30th, 2018. B, pay bills in the amount of $206,700.52 as listed on the accounts payable warrant dated January 8th, 2019. And C, pay bills in the amount of $42,271.17 as listed on the accounts payable warrant B dated January 8th, 2019. Do I have?
And then
Oh, did I miss something?
42, 271, 77,
17.
17. Okay, all right, so that gets all three. Second.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Who moved who made the original?
Thompson.
Trustee Thompson, second by Trustee Mitchell. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Sure. Trustee Thompson,
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell,
Yes.
Trustee Berg,
Yes.
Trustee Perkins,
Yes.
Trustee Rigby, Trustee Schaller,
Yes.
So approved, thank you. Moving on to item 9, the administrator's report.
Okay.
Karen, take it away.
Thank you. The Baycog Water Resources Committee met in December. Some final touches were incorporated on a new brochure on salting, and that brochure will be available soon. And also discussed was pharmaceutical disposal, and I was put in charge of contacting Walgreens, so I did. I received a phone call back today from the gentleman in charge of the Walgreens pharmaceutical disposal program. And at some of the Walgreens stores, they have the kiosks where you can dispose of your drugs safely, so that it doesn't, so you don't flush them down the toilet and get in the groundwater or water supply. The Barrington Walgreens does not have this yet. So what we are hoping to talk to Walgreens about is to get a kiosk in the Barrington Walgreens, because right now the closest one is in Lake Zurich, Miller, and
It works. I took 2 shoeboxes full of old
yeah,
heads.
yeah. So,
So,
yeah,
they
so-
all UPR or FedEx box. You
Yeah.
put it in, they
Yeah.
heats it up, and it's gone.
that person was on an extended vacation, got back to me today, and so we're playing phone tag. I attended the Lake County All Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan meeting on December 18th. That meeting is a plan that addresses natural hazards such as floods and tornadoes and severe storms, and attendance is required in order to be in compliance with the yearly report to review the action plan items, and that this is necessary if, God forbid, something happens and we're declared a state of emergency to get funding. So it's one of the things that we do when we have a good discussion. I think last month I reported that the Tarkowski property was about to be demolished, and I reported it in one of the peaks, and it has been. It's all done, and so just thank yous go out again to Lake County and former State Representative Ed Sullivan for getting them to prioritize this. Also, I'll be attending the Baycog Administrators Roundtable meeting next week. And topics of discussion are going to be including the municipal partnership initiative, MPI, you might heard it referred to, and it's where municipalities go in and do joint purchasing of certain things. And one of the people that will be talking to us will be a gentleman from Glenview, I believe, who does it on the road programs and some maintenance. So we'll hear what they have to say. And the Flint Creek, Spring Creek Watershed Partnership, I told you that might be circling around on. They now have 5 gauges to monitor conditions in Flint Creek, which is good for us, because 3 of those gauges are within our village boundaries. And they just applied for a 319 grant, since we now have an approved watershed plan, to calibrate those gauges. And what the calibration will do, we'll put all the gauges on the same benchmark, if you will, so that if one is recording a certain water level, you know it's relative to the others. But it'll also do things like measure temperatures, specific conductivity, and then the analysts who look at this can say, oh, it's got this much dissolved, total dissolved solids and stuff, and that's an indicator of how polluted it is. So when you have this data and you can compare it, year after year after year, you can see if some of the things that we're doing for clean water are actually working or not. So it's a good resource and a good tool. So that's, again, that kind of circles around to why it's important to endorse the watershed plans and to have a watershed plan, because that makes it eligible that we can even apply for a 319 grant through the EPA. And that concludes my report. Any questions?
Questions?
In terms of monitoring and things, who is responsible for the wind meters and things right out here at the bridge as you go into the trail? You see them if you're going south on
Oh, you mean right on the bridge?
Yeah.
right off the left of the bridge. Is that the county?
I thought that was the county, and actually, this, interesting you should ask, so I brought this to pass around. It's a 1996 village newsletter. It has some really cool pictures in it.
Whoa.
But they say, mystery mini tower. What is the tower at Flint Creek Bridge on Kelsey Road? And it says it's the Lake County Division of Transportation installed this as a road surface weather monitoring system to aid them in getting a jump on treating developing icy road conditions. So that's what that is. With 2 sensors, one on the bridge and another on the road approaching the bridge, the system is a decision-making tool to determine if the bridge needs treatment, like, bridges freeze before roads, or all the road. So they were just out there redoing the road this year, so I would assume they looked at it again, but
I noticed that before that ice storm happened, whenever that happened, the county or the Cuba Township came in and they only put down the slurry on the bridge, they didn't put it on the rest.
yeah, so that would have been the county, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Cuba Township takes advantage, they have temperature gauges on their trucks,
Yeah.
and that helps as well. But not, the county's doing it remotely, so when they send out the
But
trucks.
it's only on the bridge, so,
Yeah.
they knew something.
Yeah, and that's a good use of materials because you're not wasting it, so.
It's interesting that tower there also generates radio interference. Sounds like weird.
Yeah.
Get my tinfoil hat. No, so you can isolate how signals change as you come to that bridge and then as you leave it.
That's the fillings in your teeth that pick that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. I'll show you. Thank
Other
you.
questions for our administrator?
That's it.
Thank you. Item number 10 is the clerk's report.
I just have a reminder that Village Hall will be closed on January 21st in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Oh, sorry.
Mention
Thank you. And I should also mention, thank you, that Christmas tree pickup of your live Christmas trees will be on the 14th. Is the 14th?
Next Wednesday.
Next
Whatever that
Wednesday,
date is.
sorry. I should have it, I answer phone calls all day.
It's the 16th.
It's the 16th.
Yeah, 16th.
Yes,
It's the 16th.
because there's a lot of trees out now already, but
I've seen that.
Yes, many of them are blowing across the street.
they do damage to grills of cars.
I dragged one back to my neighbor's car. It was like a tumbleweed. Tracy and I had to dodge that thing. Oh, yeah, because it was a projectile. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 11, reports of the standing committee. Item A, branding communications. President Richards is not here. Did he leave anything with you? Okay, so there's no report on that tonight. B, community relations, special events, and veterans affairs. Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Interim President.
Yes. Well,
The first thing is regarding, as you may recall, we had discussions about the logo and adding the logo line, an oasis of gracious countryside living to it. And I'd just like to point out to everyone that the latest newsletter does have that logo line on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa, thank you very much. That's wonderful. Okay. Let's see. I'll be meeting with the Lake Barrington Park District to discuss how the village can work with them to enhance the resident usage of the park. And excuse me. It's been reported by Lisa that we have to date, with only a partial delivery of the newsletter, we have 4 people who have responded positively about the focus groups coming up. So that's not very good. So we're going to have to look at that some more and see what else, if possible, we can do to positively affect that. Next is Veterans of LBS. I'm sure I noted before in a previous meeting that Tom Gilder, the president of the Veterans of LBS, was nominated and found to be an honoree of the Bicentennial 200 Commission. He is one of 200 Illinois veterans to be so honored, and the village will be honoring him at the March 5th meeting. And that's all I have, Mr. President. Questions?
thank you, Trustee Thompson. Questions for Trustee Thompson? All right, moving on to economic development. That is me. Just a couple of quick things. We continue to have basically monthly meetings on this. Kathleen Scott and Karen and myself, we are marching to this colorful chart that you've all seen. I didn't include it or pass it out because we're going to do in-depth reviews on a quarterly basis. So what I would say in the spirit of being accountable and transparent, that as we met today on this chart, we are at or ahead of schedule on every item on here, but one item that we are behind schedule on, in fact, we decided to move out, was our participation in the Mid-America Economic Development Council's Conference and Site Selection Show. And that was based upon our experience at the ICSC show, where we said, we learned a lot, but we have a lot more really to get our act together before we go spend the time and energy at these shows. So we are contemplating going to this show in the spring as opposed to the December show. So that's the one area that we're behind schedule. A couple other quick points on this. We also, one of the items in here that's very important is continuing to maintain contact with key property owners, whether that's the marketplace, Lake Barrington Commons, the Pasquazy site, anything that's open that has vacancies, it's open for business. There are ongoing discussions. In the last month, we've had pretty in-depth discussions with the broker and the owner of the Pasquazy site and some prospective tenants or buyers that remains confidential, but there has been some activity there, and we have been involved with activity at Lake Barrington Commons. In fact, we've provided some information that that owner put in a packet to send out to prospective businesses, including the letter. And I don't know, did any of the board members see the letter that we put together? So we drafted a letter for, pardon?
I don't remember.
Well, we drafted a letter on behalf of the property owner and said, I would like something that shows the village's commitment and engagement in this process. I think it makes my packet more attractive. Recall Alex Ulanoff, the owner, also did a study. So what he's sending out is, oh, you can't hear me? That's unusual. So he sent out packets that showed his site kind of plan for the site. He sent out his study. And then we put in there a one-pager that Karen helped put together for it's still not used to.
It's cutting in and out.
Yeah.
Okay. That Karen helped put together that really said we're committed to economic development, we're committed to helping business owners grow their business or find prospective owners. And I thought it turned out really, really well, and Alex was quite happy with that. So we're very active on that front. It's a slow process. We're learning, as we already know, that the absence of rooftops, meaning the fact that we don't have a high-density population, is one of the things that makes the oasis of gracious countryside living, but it comes at a price that we don't have the same density in rooftops, which scares some business owners away. So it means that we have to focus on certain types of business, like Speedway, where you're going to have that transitional pass-through support. So we're learning a lot from that, but we're remaining very active. We'll do a more in-depth update on this in the coming months. Any questions?
I will send out that letter to everybody that went out.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile, because I think it was well written, and I think it was a sort of a declaration of what our commitment is, and certainly we could provide that to other business owners as well, about our desire to help partner with them to bring business to the business. So,
I heard of, what is it, Fox River Grove, just down the road, Culver's. It's
Yeah.
where Mr.
Yes.
Beefy's is.
And Bill,
Yeah.
Bill Blue.
Bill Blue, that's the other one.
Yes.
right.
You're going, are going.
Yes, March. Understood.
Oddly, I think there is somewhat of a changing of the mix that could help us. It sounds weird, it's like, oh, well, they're giving Culver's, yeah, but that changes the perspective
Right.
of that strip.
Yeah,
So,
agreed. Any other questions on economic development? Go ahead.
I don't know if it's goes there, but somebody else pointed out to me that I noticed policy on selling private vehicles on business property and storage of boats and RVs at the corner.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know, yeah, I've seen boats and RVs in private businesses being stored, yes. And your question is that permitted?
Yes. Specifically at the Angel Water.
I don't know, I'll have to look into it. So it's storage of,
Yes, it appears to be stored, meaning it's been sitting there for some period of time without
Right.
moving. Yeah,
large watercraft,
right,
RV,
right.
and then a car for sale in the corner of the lot.
all in the
With a
same
for
line.
sale sign.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to review not just the zoning ordinance, but the plat development ordinance for that property.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
thanks
just-
for bringing it to us.
Somebody said, no, they're not selling cars there. Oh,
If
maybe.
they are selling cars there, we're gonna get a piece of that.
I was gonna say. So I just,
Okay.
Mongo Pollen gave up life.
Moving on, there is no external relations report. Moving on, item E, Finance, Human Resources, and Administration, Trustee Rigby.
No report.
Thank you. Open Space and Village Facilities, Trustee Mitchell.
Mr. Moneybags.
Yeah.
Administrator Dalton Lang and I have met and discussed prioritizing, and in a nutshell, life, health, safety, fire, those things we dealt with, if not already, pronto, and then we will move to things that damage or are creating damage, mostly water infiltration of the building, and then it will go down from there. And into all the priorities will drift off into things that would be nice to do. We don't have money to do nice to do.
Right.
So,
So is this the timing of this that we'll have some visibility to that for the budget prep that's coming up, right?
in the works.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety and Gated Communities, Trustee Shower.
Thank you, acting chairperson Burke.
You're welcome.
My condolences to Notre Dame and Georgia, if that's okay.
And
We've had about enough. Clemson?
In my president remarks, thank you, I forgot to say if President Richardson were here, he'd be in a bright orange sweater. All Clemson all the time. It's great when you can root for more than one team that's in the playoffs. So he can hardly lose.
That's right. As I mentioned last month, we do have a new sheriff, John Engelberg, and Administrator Nolan Lang said have you set up? Is there going to be a meeting? I know he's trying to reach out.
Yeah, they called me and set up a meeting. I don't remember when it's at. It's a couple weeks.
Okay.
Just to say hello.
Happy part of that. As you do, I periodically meet with our day shift commander, Chris Thompson. I met him just a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday morning just to try to go over what's going on around here, and he's been informative. And matter of fact, the day that I met with him is the day that Hunter Grabowski was charged with breaking and entering in some activity with burglary of motor vehicles in the Lake Barrington area. So whether or not that individual who allegedly is being charged, to use that because he's convicted yet, they were trying to perhaps try to link that into other activity that is taking place out here. And in fact, there was another forced entry break-in Lake Barrington Shores just a couple of weeks ago, and found out that jewelry was taken. They ransacked the house, so it seems like they're targeting certain areas, and this one, this individual, mostly with vehicles and things like that. It's still a matter of reminding residents to lock their cars, lock their homes, don't leave key fobs in the front seat, don't leave anything in the front seat. There was a window broken for like $18 in the front seat of the car. Just don't ask for it. And if you see anything suspicious, just like this individual in LBF, somebody had to see somebody suspicious in that area, call the sheriff's department. Don't hesitate to do it. I know they were just saying, even the fire that we had last year, people in that area, instead of calling 911, ran up to one main gate. You said, do you know that one of the units is on fire? Just call the fire department, call 911, don't hesitate. I mean, it's simple, but it's amazing.
Quick, what's the number for 911?
You have to get a town crier officially put up.
This stuff, but it's just a matter of awareness and keeping your eyes open if you see something different.
Yeah.
As Karen does, I get a report now from Lake County Sheriff's on service related to our community. They had 201 extra patrols and subdivisions within Lake Barrington in the last month when they reported. So I meant there is increased surveillance, extra patrol 51 times, 10 times extra patrol in houses. So I meant they are increased, but that's their job. Don't feel bad calling and saying, I have somebody suspicious in the neighborhood. You know, it might not be anything important. Just let them know that is taking place. Barrington Countryside Fire Protection District, they're still working on Station 3, which would be down next to the Prairie Middle School. We have some objections from the school district, which are moving ahead a little bit with that. They are going to have another 4 days of classes on FEMA, the 300 and 400 classes down there in April 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And they have their annual swearing-in ceremony January 31st at their next meeting with promotions at that time. Wakanda has likewise done the same with adding people to their department, and one of their assistant chiefs just retired about a week ago. So I've been attending those events as well. As far as the subdivisions, Tallgrass is very quiet, obviously, this time of year. I drove through there, and if you haven't driven through Tallgrass lately, there's a lot of activity going on there. Nice, encouraging activity. Foundations being driven, land lots being cleared, houses are up. So that's an encouraging sign. And the Enclave, as we mentioned, I did go to their annual meeting, or they came here because it was held here, and we are talking about assisting with increased awareness of the intersection that feeds into that subdivision Road. And two other things, Baycog, as Shannon Echolivy had pointed out, is having that tabletop on February 1st. We also met, another part of that is discussing mobile communication through the school district and through school buses. And so the last meeting we had in December, the group was asked if the mobile communication hubs concept still seems feasible. The answer was yes. Next step is to obtain the necessary permissions, then to test radio interoperability among the police, fire, school district, and Barrington Transportation Company, and then following that, the planning group will be convened again. So they're two separate. That's one aspect of communication that's being dealt with, and this other one are these tabletop exercises that they periodically hold, and it's good for the village to be involved in that, obviously, as well as the fire department and the police department, because we all rely on them for everything. And finally, only one last thing about Lake Barrington Shores. The golf club restaurant was going to be open for breakfast and lunch. I got an email today, they're going to be closed till spring, so I guess breakfast and lunch is off the table
Close
for the
altogether.
restaurant. They're being closed altogether until, except for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, big special Valentine's Day.
But they scrub breakfast and lunch, so you'll have to keep going to down the road here on 22, the brunch cafe. That's it. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Trustee Shelley? I have one.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it was just an interesting thing that I don't even know what came over me, but I decided to drive back on Great Barn and back through Enclave and noticed that the gates were open.
Yeah.
Are they always open?
Yeah,
I think, yeah, they haven't,
they've always been
So
open.
it's a gated community that.
it's just like Tallgrass, the gates are always open, so I think until they get completely built out.
Because it's too difficult, because they have too many contractors and stuff in and out.
Well, the contractors are not supposed to be using Gray Barn, and I called Heather and asked her to repost the sign that's missing now.
They're supposed to be coming in the back.
In the
They're
back.
supposed to come in that back entrance, so.
But they should.
Curiosity.
Right, yeah.
I mean, anybody, people like me.
Yeah, well, it's a gated community.
People were giving me a dirty.
With LBS, at least we drive.
They knew I didn't belong.
With LBS, at least we just drive through the gates these days. If you've seen, sometimes you come in and the gate is bent all the way over, so people just drive through it, that's all.
Even the red reflectors.
Oh, it's beautiful. They look
They're like
good.
targets.
And they light up when you go in, because the gate is trying to go do something. So it's, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have one.
Yes, sorry, didn't mean to. Please, ask another question, go ahead.
Just neighborhood watch committees.
You will recall, a couple of years ago, we tried to get interest in a neighborhood watch for the entire community, and trying to get, matter of fact, some of the HOA leaders to take part in that. This did not seem to be an awful lot of interest or activity moving forward. Roman Buckberger is, with the Sheriff's Department, came down here, did a couple of sessions that we had. It was brought up again in LBS. We have a group called the Shoresmen, not the golfers, but the guys that meet once a month for lunch. Trustee Thompson being one of them, and the topic came up once again. So if in fact there's interest in reinvestigating that from a village standpoint, I'd be happy to do it. Otherwise, I think LBS is interested in trying to get Buckberger to come by and do something. The dilemma, again, is people sometimes don't want to get involved. So even though you're part of the neighborhood watch and I see something different, I don't do anything about it. So, I mean, it's, a lot of neighborhoods have it. It works fairly well. There are signs, there are all kinds of things that are available, but be happy to investigate it again if in fact you think it's worth investigating from a village standpoint. Otherwise, I think LBS is going to try to do something. I know Chip Reeves is coming to our daytime deputy sheriff is coming to LBS on the 17th to give a presentation there on ruse his burglaries and being aware and all this kind of stuff before he retires. In fact, he's going to retire. To be determined. As long as the donuts hold out.
We should have a party.
He's a good guy. Yes, he is a very good guy. And so is Robin, who's normally here, but she's not controlling, I presume. So, yeah, again, if you think there's some interest in reinvestigating again, be happy to get Roman Butberger down here and have a session that involves HOAs from throughout the community and see whether or not there's something that needs to be pursued again. Let me know.
Thank you. Other questions for Trustee Shell? All right. Next is roads and infrastructure. Trustee Perkins.
Thank you very much. I just have a couple of quick things. Karen is getting design proposals for the Anderson Road project. And then also, just real quickly, last month, Karen took time out of her busy schedule to drive around with me for a couple of hours and show me some roads. We just looked at road conditions, and she kind of just handed out some knowledge. I don't know that I retained much of it, but I did the best. But she's pretty technical. This woman has a lot. There's a lot of knowledge in that little body. But she just kind of explained the criteria for the grading system of the roads of like A, B, C, D. Which road is going to be repaired next, and it was very interesting. And she gave me some history about some different areas, and it was really a nice thing. I want to thank her for taking the time out of her schedule to do that.
The most exciting 2 hours.
Cheat day.
It was interesting though. It was, it was better than my, house.
Next, you get to run the snowplow, right?
Yeah.
We're going to drive along and see a lot.
Yes.
So, yes, but that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, we're moving on to item 12, old business, which there is no business, so we'll move on to item 13, ordinances. 13A, compensation for the village administrator. It's my understanding this was discussed last month, or not? Trustee, do you have anything to set this up?
We discussed it, and it was my impression from all the trustees, they were all in agreement with the recommendation.
Is there any additional discussion required or needed at this point in time to move forward? Anyone? Okay.
I'd like to add that President Richardson, myself, and Karen are going to sit down on Saturday morning, because she and I developed her plan for this next year. We're going to sit Saturday morning and go through that.
Great. All right, no other questions. Then Chair would like a motion to approve ordinance number 2019-0-1, an ordinance regarding the village administrator's compensation. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Mitchell and seconded by Trustee Thompson. Thank you. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Perkins?
Yes.
Trustee Rigby?
Aye.
Trustee Shaw?
Yes.
So moved. Thank you. Approved. Thank you. Item number 14, resolutions. There are none. Item 15, there is a piece of new business that we need to discuss, which is compensation of the village staff. Is this Trustee Rigby or?
Good, okay, so the Finance, Human Resources, and Administration Committee, we've met. We previously discussed at this most recent committee of the whole meeting, village staff and the recommended compensation in form of a one-time staff bonus for their work that they've done this last year. And the motion is on the table for consideration.
Great. Are there any further questions before we move on this? From anyone? Okay. If not, then the chair would like a motion to approve a staff bonus of $2,000 for each village clerk, building permit, administrator, administrator and village accountant, and $1,000 for the village treasurer. Do I have such?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Schaller,
Second.
seconded by trustee Mitchell. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Sure. Trustee Schaller?
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Perkins?
Yes.
Trustee Rigby? Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
Approved, thank you. Item number 16 is the second opportunity for the public to address the village.
No shoving.
That's right, yeah.
Get in line.
Get in line, everybody. Be courteous.
Is there a need for closed session tonight, Attorney Davis? I thought so. There is no other. So the best part of the meeting always is when the chair looks for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have that, please?
There will be a line.
Moved by trustee Rigby,
Second.
seconded by trustee Thompson. All in favor? We are adjourned.
You are 20 minutes late.